Number 3 is 65 seconds, so is number 6. So is number 7 is not here, is it? Number 10.
We're into the second half of the 2019 International GT Open season, and here we are this afternoon for race 2 of round 5 here at the home of British Motorsport. Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit, 5.9 kilometres and another 60 minutes of International GT Open action. We've had Paul Ricard, we've had Hockenheim, Spa-Francorchamps and Red Bull Ring last time out. Now we're here this weekend at the home of British Motorsport, Silverstone, with still Barcelona and Monza left to run. Air temperature 17 degrees, track temperature 33 degrees, and the humidity continues to go down. It started the weekend in the mid to high 80s, now it's down into the 40s. Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Woodward's here to guide you through the action on what should be another fantastic race. And the conditions were bright and sunny yesterday at the end of the afternoon. They've certainly brightened up even further today. And after another exhilarating qualifying session, it's going to be a fascinating spectacle to see who can come out on top. So coming into this race, based on yesterday's results, it was a 1-2 for the Emil Frey racing team, and I'm sure we'll see some highlights from race 1 very shortly. But once again, it will be the Emil Frey duo that will start on pole position together. Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe will be on pole position. Michael Grenier and Norbert Siedler will be on the front row alongside each other. So, as it was yesterday, as it has been all season, each two-driver pair will have an allocated driver 1 and driver 2. It was driver 1 that started the race yesterday. Today it's driver 2. So in that instance, Albert Costa, who was designated as driver 2, he will start the race in pole position for car 63. And for his teammate, Michael Grenier, he will start that car shared with Norbert Siedler in car number 14. There's a car to watch out for starting third on the grid. This is the SPS Automotive Mercedes of Fabrizio Crestagna that he shares with Miguel Costa. There's our pole sitting car and championship leaders after yesterday's victory. Albert Costa sharing with Giacomo Altoe. And they hold a 7-point lead coming into this second race after victory yesterday. So it's a 60-minute race with a mandatory pit stop. There is, of course, the mandatory pit window which they'll have to obey. And there'll be different strategies which teams will apply. So will it be either teams that will jump in at the start of the pit window, teams might jump in at the end depending on who they've got in the car, whether they've got their faster or slower driver in there. Either way, it should be a fascinating contest. We're on board heading to the grid with Fran Mereda, on board one of the 2 Toyo Martin Motorsport McLarens. There would be 3, but sadly, due to the contact yesterday at the start of race 1 that saw the Marcelo Ham and Alain Correa McLaren off the road and into the barriers. Sadly, it means that we will not see them start this race, nor will we see, I'm afraid, Daniele Roda, after he had a pretty tumultuous day yesterday, after he had an off in qualifying, which brought out a red flag, and then cause of a safety car yesterday when he hit a curb too hard, and that seemed to split something on the underneath of the car, which not only put fluid onto the circuit to some kind of capacity, but also caused a small fire, which forced him to park up on the run towards Stowe Corner, halfway down the Hangar Straight. And the position the car found itself in meant that he ended up on the side of the road. Here's another car to watch out for, starting from 6th on the grid. Darren Turner in the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage. He shares this car with newly named BRDC Rising star Ollie Wilkinson. And Ollie, along with Bradley Ellis, are also the GT3 Pro-Am champions in board that very car, and that car will be out in action for the season finale of British GT at Donington Park next weekend. So they're just using Silverstone here as a bit of a warm-up before their season finale. Also looking strong is the Russell Ward and Indy Dontje Mercedes, which starts on Pro-Am pole and 7th overall on the grid. They start alongside with number 3, Senkia Motorsport BMW of Butskivissa and Richard Gonda. And there is Darren Turner at the wheel of the Aston Martin. Of course, Aston Martin factory driver and former Le Mans class winner. He's even been a Formula 1 test driver for McLaren back in the day. And and now applies his craft, still racing GTs. But there at the front of the grid are the two blue and white Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis. And here are our pole sitters. There is Albert Costa. Said he was feeling a little bit unwell yesterday and said he went to the hospital overnight. But thankfully he appears to have gotten much better this morning. And he will start on pole for Emil Frey Racing in car number 63. Alongside him are his teammates. Michael Grenier, who will start with number 14, Emil Frey Lamborghini, the man from Canada, and his Austrian teammate, who he will hand over to later on in the race, Norbert Siedler. Row 2, it's Fabrizio Crestani, who will start the SPS Automotive number 10 Mercedes AMG GT3. And they come into this race fourth in the points after their result yesterday, picking up a third place. Alongside them on the grid, the man who started and finished in fourth yesterday, that's Enrique Chavez, who will start the leading Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren and hand over to the Croatian driver Martin Kodric at the mandatory pit stops. Fifth place on the grid, we will see the men fifth in the points, and that is Fran Reda, finished fifth yesterday. And Andres Sarabia will take over that car later on this afternoon. Alongside them on the sixth row of the grid, actually this is back in position 8, so we've skipped a couple of rows, to Beitske Visser, the rather rapid Dutch lady. And here back in 7th position is Russell Ward, the American, who will start with Indy Donche taking over. And they start from 7th place in their HTP Motorsport Mercedes. And the car we were waiting for is this man, Darren Turner, who picks his way into his grid slot. There's Ollie Wilkinson in the white racing suit as Darren Turner manoeuvres the number 96 Optum Motorsport Aston into position. Here's a car to watch out for as well. 10th on the grid, another local favourite, Tom Onslow Cole, sharing with Valentin Pierberg, the German driver. And alongside them on the grid in 9th place is the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini of Thomas Tuchel. He shares with Frederick Schandorf, and they're hoping for better fortunes at the start of the race after they got tangled up with the Optum Motorsport Aston Martin. And as a result of that contact, it also put the Ombra Racing Lamborghini of Federico Leo and Naji Razak out of the race as well on the opening lap, and that caused a lengthy safety car, which saw us under those conditions for around about 20 minutes before we got racing back underway, and it kind of negated most of the first stint for many of the drivers. So let's take a look at some of the highlights from race 1. So a clean start from the front row of the Emil Racing Lamborghinis up into turn 1. Then into second place immediately went Andres Sarabia in second place in the McLaren as Ollie Wilkinson watched on. But then up into Magnussen Beckett's. The first incident occurred with contact between the Spirit of Race Ferrari and Marcelo Hahn in the Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren. Impact at the front, impact at the rear, and sadly that was the car's done for the weekend. Also, controversy at Stowe Corner when contact between Frederick Schandorf and Ollie Wilkinson saw Naji Razak off into the barriers, and he was out of the race too. There was a spin for the 99 Sports and New Mercedes of Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia, and this was the cause of the second safety car with Davide Roda out of the race. Battles late on in the race between Crestani and the two Teo Martin McLarens, and he eventually managed to move past both to get into a podium place by the end of the race. And more battles going on with Tom Onslow Cole going around the outside of Thomas Tuchel, with the Spirit of Race Ferrari also getting into the mix. But no one could stop the Emil Frey Lamborghinis, as it was a victory and a 1-2 for the team, and their third win of the season, giving them the championship lead, as Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe were winners in race 1 yesterday here at Silverstone. And so here's what it did to the points. 85 points for Costa and Altoe, 7 ahead of Chavez and Kodric in second place. Grenier and Siedler back in third with 67. Only a point ahead of Ramos and Crestani, with Reda and Sarabia level on points with the SPS Automotive pair. So the battle for third place is certainly on in the championship, and it's also very close still for the lead. So this championship in GT Open is fast and settled. We're getting set for race 2 of International GT Open here at Silverstone, and this is the confirmation of the starting grid. Costa and Altoe on the front row of the grid. It's an all Emil Frey Racing front row with Siedler and Grenier. Ramos and Crestani ahead of Kodric and Chavez on the second row of the grid, Mercedes and McLaren. Row 3 is the second Teo Martin McLaren with Vareda and Saravia, Wilkinson and Turner in the Aston Martin alongside them. Row 4, it's Russell Ward and Indy Donche in the Mercedes, Visser and Gonda in the BMW. Row 5, rounding out the top 10, Schandorf and Tugela in the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini, Pierberg and Onslow Cole in the Mercedes. Leo and Razak hoping to get past lap 1 in the Lamborghini, Zampieri and Spinelli in the Mercedes in 12th. Cameron and Griffin in the Spirit of Race Ferrari and the Lazarus racing car of DeMarco and Martinez. Jiatong Liang in the Raton Racing Lamborghini and Hartshorn and Hancock in the Ferrari. And at the back of the grid, Miguel Sardinia and Giuseppe Cipriani, who stopped in qualifying but looks as though he's got his car repaired and back out onto the road. So as you can see through the heat haze, it's much warmer than it was yesterday. That will certainly have an effect over this 60-minute race. We had a 70-minute race yesterday, so slightly shorter today. And that means they can push a little bit harder in this race. And of course, the grid was set by a brand new qualifying system set for this weekend, where the session was split into two 15-minute parts. So you had one driver go out for 15 minutes, then a 5-minute break. The other went out for the remaining 15 minutes. And then the fastest lap from each driver was then taken together and given an average. And that, therefore, set the grid for both races 1 and 2, respectively, from their independent qualifying sessions. So all of the top 5 drivers in the championship are in the top 5 on the grid, not necessarily in the order of the championship. But Darren Turner will want to get himself a good start. Of course, the former Le Mans winner starting 6th for Aston Martin. Cars also to watch out for. Watch out for the BMW there. Sinkia Motorsport, they took a podium on their debut race. Some great strategy and a long first stint from Richard Gonda allowed him to hand the car over to Beitske Visser at the Red Bull Ring and allowed them to take a podium and second place ahead of the 2 Teo Martin McLarens. And they've had their ups and downs, the McLarens. They have at one point led the championship, but just haven't ultimately had the pace at many times to keep up with the Emil Frey Lamborghinis. Surprises of the race could possibly come from the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini, maybe Tom Onslow Cole as well, and also Indy Donche in the mix. So all 3 of the Pro-Am cars could cause a worry if any of the Pro cars around them have any problems. As Giuseppe Cipriani makes up the back of the grid. There's only 2 AM cars here out today, as we said. No Daniele Roda after he had problems, after he struck a curb too hard and caused the problems that put him out of race 1. And whatever problems they had, it's not fixable for race 2, sadly. So the drivers weave from side to side just to get as much heat and pressure into the tyres and brakes. Make sure they're in the optimal working range before the race gets underway. It will be a 2x2 formation rolling start. And of course, you have to wait until the green lights, until they've all got past the line, because Fabrizio Crestani got himself a penalty for moving between 2nd and 3rd place on the grid at the Red Bull Ring from going too quickly, so he's got to be careful with that. We've got a couple of onboard cameras, of course, Fran Rada in the car in front of us, also with Ollie Wilkinson and Darren Turner. So we'll get some great onboard shots throughout the race. And there'll be plenty of battles up and down the order as well, looking at the rest of the points table as to where there might be some other battles to watch out for. Ollie Wilkinson will try and increase his 1 point advantage over Tom Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierberg. 38 points for Wilkinson, 37 points for Onslow Cole and Pierberg. And Beitske Visser and Richard Gonda are on 19 points, but they've got to try and keep ahead of the likes of Matt Griffin and Duncan Cameron on 17 points. And also on the same total are Nicola DeMarco and Daniel Zampieri and Lucia Rivera. So the cars all set to get underway. And it's the 2 Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis who have been dominant all weekend so far. They're looking to secure another 1-2 and to secure more points towards the team's title as well. Safety car's about to pull in. And in bright sunshine here at Silverstone, we're all set for race 2 of the weekend, for round 5 of the 2019 International GT Open Championship. Albert Costa on pole, Miguel Grenier on the right-hand side alongside. But watch for Crestani in the Mercedes and the 2 Teo Martin McLarens, plus Darren Turner and those behind them. All set for the start here. Watch for the red lights. They go out any second now. Heading towards the start-finish line in green, and we're underway for race 2, and straight into Bolide goes Albert Costa. Grenier slots into 2nd place, and the 2 McLarens are battling with Crestani into Copse Corners. We go on board with Darren Turner, and he's into 5th position. That's Fran Rada on board with, my apologies. Up into Magnus Beckers and Chapel, as we see there Chavez has his route blocked off by Crestani into Magnus and Beckett for the first time. Everyone's got through the first part of the complex without drama. So Costa from Grenier, Crestani in third place. The two Teo Martin McLarens with Chavez ahead of Rueda. Darren Turner up to sixth. Then it's Ward, Visser, Tujula and Tom Onslow Cole running out the top 10 as they head down the hanger straight up towards Stowe Corner and already up to third place. Diving up the inside, having a look is Enrique Chavez. Slots back in behind the Mercedes as they come out of Stowe and down towards Valeland Club for the first time. Back on board with Fran Moreda. Looking to the outside of his teammate. And the two Teo Martin cars can't be going into combat too soon. Trying to go around the outside there was Weitskavissa, trying to make a move on Tom Onslow Cole. And she's lost a place off the start. As they head out through the Grand Prix circuit, past the pits. One car running wide on the exit there. One of the Mercedes in trouble possibly. Maybe a loss of momentum as they come up through Abbey Corner, and now attacking for second place is Fabrizio Crestani on the back of Michael Grenier as they come into the complex. At Village, side by side between Tom Onslow Cole and Darren Turner, the two Brits going wheel to wheel into the loop, and up the inside goes the Mercedes at the expense of the Optum Aston Martin. So that is going to be Tom Onslow Cole now up into sixth position. So a quick start for the former British touring car race. At a circuit he knows all too well. He had victory last year here with Valentin Pierberg. And they're still going side by side. The move hasn't been completed yet, but up into the lead, released into sixth position, goes Tom Onslow Cole at the expense of Darren Turner. Here is the onboard view from Darren, the two McLarens just in front. And as they come to the end of lap one, it is now already a fairly commanding lead for Albert Costa. He leads the way. Grenier in second place by 1.3 seconds. Crestani third, Enrique Chavez fourth, then Moreda fifth. Onslow Cole sixth, Turner, Visser, Tujula and Zampieri up to P10 ahead of Matt Griffin and Federico Leo. And one car's in trouble is Russell Ward, so that was the car that went wide on the exit of Club Corner with problems, and that's a shame after such a strong performance in qualifying yesterday. They're changing the right front, so maybe there was some problems with a puncture, but we'll wait and see. Maybe if there's even a replay of what happened on the opening lap, we'll see if we can grab it if possible. Onto the hanger straight on lap 2. Costa now trying to extend the advantage at the end of sector 1. It was 1.3 at the lights, now 1.5 as they come to the end of the hanger straight. And the headlights are flashing brightly on the back of, looks like, Daniel Zampieri's Mercedes. That was Matt Griffin, who was trying to distract them as much as possible. Into the complex they go. Costa pretty much oblivious to the battles going on behind. Darren Wilson's got some... Darren Turner, my apologies, has managed to get himself up into 7th place. And still, Zampieri is being put under massive pressure here from Matt Griffin, with Federico Leo and Raffaele Gianmaria stacking up behind him. Also, Ollie Hancock's in the mix there in the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Good to see Kessel Racing back in the championship this weekend. That's the all-British lineup with Ollie Hancock and John Hartshorn, and Hancock starting at the wheel of that car. As we go back on board with Fran Moreda, taking a tight entry into the loop to keep the leaders in sight. And we see here Enrique Chavez possibly starting to line up Fabrizio Crestani for a move for third position as he's in the tow down towards Brooklands. Here he comes, darts the inside line. But again, he wasn't far enough alongside. Simply a distraction technique to try and force Crestani to move off the racing line. But as one McLaren goes on the attack, the other one goes on the defensive, because look at Tom Onslow Cole, the way he's monstering the back of the second of the Teo Martin cars. There's Darren Turner back in 7th place. And the first proper flying lap goes to 1:59.286 to Albert Costa. This is a replay of Federico Leo getting up the inside of Raffaele Gianmaria. Gianmaria runs wide, and as a result of that, it brings Ollie Hancock into play. So that's a battle to watch out for down between 12th to 14th place. Leaders funnel their way through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, and Tom Onslow Cole's the one to watch. He's the man on the move so far. Up in 6th position. Next target is that orange and white McLaren of Fran Moreda. But the gap now is 1.8 seconds in the lead for Albert Costa. The Emil Frey Lamborghinis have it. Nice commanding lead for them as they head in through Stowe Corner on lap 3. And there is Martin Kodrich, one of the main championship contenders. And he watches on rather nervously as his co-driver Enrique Chavez keeps on applying the pressure to Fabrizio Crestani. The second group headed by Weitskavissa. And in there we've got Thomas Tujula in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini. Also Matt Griffin in there as well, who has got past Daniel Zampieri. And then we've got a pair of Lamborghinis followed by the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Here's Fabrizio Crestani, put in a good performance in the second half of the race yesterday in his stint, and managed to move up to third place at the expense of the two McLarens. As we look back on this battle pack, scrapping over 8th position down to around 14th in that group. So again on fastest lap pace is Albert Costa. Purple sectors in the first and middle sectors. And now we go back on board with Fran Moreda as he still chases his teammate Enrique Chavez, who's a little wayward on the apex of Brooklands. Has to go defensive by hugging the inside line at Luffield. Is this a little bit of pressure here for Chavez? And once again, the worst thing that Teo Martin wants, they don't want their two cars going into combat. That said, they are both fighting for the championship. So it's going to be interesting to watch the dynamic between these two cars, because they're not necessarily going to help each other out here. They're going to try and keep battling to get as many points as possible towards the Drivers' Championship. So there is Fran Rueda, keeping on the rear wing of Chavez, looking further back to our scrap for 7th place backwards. Weitskevissa holding on in the Senkia Motorsport BMW. Then it's Thomas Tugela in the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini, and that is Tom Onslow Cole. Now, what's happened to Tom Onslow Cole? Because he's dropped down the order. I didn't see it on camera, so I must have missed that for some reason. But Tom Onslow Cole back in 14th place now. So what's happened to Tom? Maybe we can get a replay of that if it's possible, if you've got one. As we see now under track, Daniel Zampieri under threat for Federico Leo, with Raffaele Gianmaria in 12th place. And here comes Matt Griffin, possibly looking to the inside line of the Finn Thomas Tugela. But no way through. Griffin remains in 9th place in that British Racing Green coloured Spirit of Race Ferrari. Great looking car. And we go back on board with the McLaren, 5th position. Fran Moreda, he will hand over to Andres Saravia at the pit stops. As again, Albert Costa is on fastest lap pace. There's a 35.4. That's at least 0.3 quicker in the first sector than anyone else. And he does it again in the second sector, 51.7. He's at least 0.2 quicker than anyone else. So really strong pace so far as Tom Onslow Cole tries to reclaim the places he's lost. Why he's further down, unless there's a replay or an explanation. Because I don't think we caught it on the cameras, so maybe you might get a replay, at least not on the live feed, but if someone around the circuit did catch it on the cameras, then you might have a shot of that. Chavez and Rueda, the two Teo Martin McLarens running in line astern, 4th and 5th, but they are allowing Fabrizio Crestani to get away up the road to chase after Miguel Grenier. As they come out of Copse and back towards Maggots and Beckett's. Darren Turner's been dropped back in 6th position. He's in a little bit of no man's land. He's not catching the cars in front, but at the same time, he's not really being caught by Weitskevissa and co. in 7th and 8th. And this is Tom Onslow Cole diving up the inside on the start of his recovery drive, filing past Ollie Hancock in the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Just to confirm, Albert Costa leads the way overall, and of course in the pro category from Miguel Grenier and Fabrizio Crestani. It's Thomas Tugela that leads Pro-Am from Matt Griffin and Raffaele Gianmaria, but of course the resurgent Tom Onslow Cole is back in 4th, and then Giuseppe Cipriani leads the way in the two AM cars. As the field makes its way back through the new Grand Prix part of the circuit. And Albert Costa looks as though he's got this race under control already, and we've only just got to 10 minutes. So remember, if he can win here, he will go ahead and take his and Giacomo Altoe's 4th win of the season, and that will, I'm sure, extend their lead even further in the points when they head to Barcelona in a couple of weeks' time, where there'll be 2 more chances to score maximum points. Head out of Aintree and onto the back straight towards Brooklands. There goes Grenier, there goes Crestani, and still the two McLarens haven't changed places, but you just feel there's a bit of something that's about to happen imminently between these two. Either they're just running in formation to bank team points when both are fighting for the championship. I think that possibly one of them might want to possibly try and pull away here, and either Fran Moreda is just a little bit stuck behind Enrique Chavez, or he's simply just not really too concerned about trying to chase after the leaders. He's just content on sitting behind his teammate to get as much points as he can to help Teo Martin potentially pick up some vital scores towards the team's title. There is the Teo Martin squad watching on. So I think that's Andres Saravi, I think, watching on with that, as we watch the leaders come down the back straight. Lap 6. Cristani put in a personal best last time by, and he was 6/10 quicker, or 4/10 quicker, my apologies, than Miguel Grenier. But he matched the pace there or thereabouts of Albert Costa. So Cristani's on the move, closing in on second place. But again, Costa has the race under control by 3.3, nearly 3.4 seconds. And a warning for car 99, and that is the Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia Sports and U Mercedes, but that's currently running back in 17th place. And that has been given a warning for track limits at turns 7 and 11, so they've got to be really careful not to transgress one too many times. There's Darren Turner running on his own in 6th position. Not that much of a threat to the two McLarens in front, but not really being challenged by Kvyat and co behind. What's his lap times like at the moment? His last lap was on 59.6, so he's actually matching the pace of the cars in front, if not a little bit slower, so that's why he's not really making that much progress. I wonder if they'll be able to find some more pace once Ollie Wilkinson jumps into the car. As the two McLarens again head out of Luffield in line astern formation, all the way through Woodcote and up towards Copse Corner again. We're on to lap 7. And again, lap time wise, Albert Costa has the advantage. He's lapping pretty much near, if not on, fastest lap pace, because we see further back here, this is Matt Griffin trying to go around the outside of, looks like that is the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini, and up at the inside line. That was a bold pass, and he gets through around Thomas Tuchel into what is now 8th position. His next target, I'm sure, will be the BMW of Mike Skavissa. A little further back, just seeing Daniel Zampieri, and here is Federico Leo. We have Tom Onslow Cole sandwiched in between the two Lamborghinis. He's got Raffaele Giammaria right behind him. And then the Kessel Racing Ferrari of Ollie Hancock. And already you can see in the foreground, Matt Griffin has caught the rear end of Mike Skavissa already. He could be making designs on 7th place as they turn their way through Stowe and up towards Vale. And he just moves out, tries to put himself into Beitska's mirrors, but I think she's more wise to that than he thinks. And Tuchel hasn't disappeared either. He's on the back of the Ferrari, still keen to reclaim that 8th position. Zampieri in the white Mercedes behind is in 10th place. There's your battle for 7th. Visser, Griffin, Tuchel and Zampieri. And Tom Onslow Cole, of course, is up to 12th, so he's not really making the same amount of progress that he would have liked. But then again, it might be just a very competitive midfield in this race so far. Federico Leo under attack from Tom Onslow Cole. Has a look around the outside, but there wasn't going to be any room there, as Federico Leo was always going to take the racing line, run out wide and shut the door. He might get him back here. Here comes Matt Griffin, looking to the outside. Will he make a late dive on the outside line into Brooklands? He will. Here comes the Ferrari around the outside of Beitskavis. He's done it once. Can he do it again into the complex at Luffield? Oh, he's got up the inside. That's brilliant. 2 laps in succession, 2 brilliant moves around the outside. First of all, on Federico Leo. Also Thomas Tuchel. And then on Beitskavis. So, Matt Griffin's the one on the move now. He leads the second group. 7th place now for the Ferrari, 8th for the BMW, 9th for the Lamborghini. And Matt Griffin, as a result of that, is also into the Pro-Am lead. So he now leads ahead of the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini. And here is that battle. Let's see if Beitskavis can hold on to the Ferrari, or if she's going to lose more time to Thomas Tuchel behind in 9th position. Here's the pack further back. This is Kessel Racing and Ollie Hancock keeping Raffaele Giammaria in the Raton Racing by Target Lamborghini fairly honest. So there you see 7th down to around about 14th, 15th place, all in the same straight. As Visser again goes defensive and takes the racing line to defend from a charging Thomas Tuchel. It may look as though he started to make designs on a potential move for 8th position. Lamborghini's looking racy. There goes Zampieri, there goes Tom Onslow Cole. So TOC is up to 11th place after he got past Federico Leo. Zampieri will be his chance to crack into the top 10, if possible. And Visser, on this lap, really has fallen away from Matt Griffin, so the mid-engine Ferrari seems to have the better handle of the Silverstone circuit. As up the inside into the complex goes Tom Onslow-Cole. That's another one picked off, and up into the top 10 goes Tom. And Zampieri tries to get him back on the exit, but there's no room to get through, and Tom Onslow-Cole now sets his sights on catching the fight for 8th. There goes Matt Griffin, and Tuja looks one way then the other, just darts into Visser's mirrors. Where's he going to go? Visser parks the car on the apex of Brooklands and again into Luffield, hugs the inside line, denies any opportunity for Lamy to get through. He might start to squeeze on the inside line, did a bit of a wheel of oversteer as he stepped on the throttle in his eagerness to try and get alongside the BMW. Into the right-hander, through Woodcote, across the line to start another lap. And the gap between Griffin and Visser now is already 2.5 seconds, so Visser not enjoying this first stint so far. And the lack of pace is certainly hurting. And I think, to be honest, Tuja looks the quicker of the two drivers at the moment in this early stage. Maybe when Richard Gonda jumps in, they may find a bit more pace, but Visser, who is usually quite quick, as we say, has been a racer in the W Series this year, which has also been quite prominent in single heaters before that, particularly Formula Renault 3.5, is certainly feeling the pressure here, possibly not enjoying the setup of the BMW in these warmer conditions compared to yesterday. There's Ollie Hancock in the Kessel Racing Ferrari. He'll hand over to John Hartshorn later on. Meanwhile, back at the front, here is our race leader, Albert Costa, with a 5.3 second advantage over his teammates. At the moment, it's becoming another Emil Frey Racing demonstration here at Silverstone. There's Fabrizio Crestani, who's fallen away a tiny bit to Michael Grenier in second place, but he has got a nice 2-second cushion to the McLarens behind him. Here's that scrap for 8th going on. Now then, Tom Onslow-Cole, in his efforts to reclaim the ground he lost earlier on, is on the back of the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini with Thomas Tuchel at the wheel. Out of Aintree onto the Wellington Straight. And behind there's a move on because I think Federico Lea is under threat from Ollie Hancock. He looks to the outside line. This will be for 12th position. And just as Matt Griffin did around the outside at Brooklands, they're at it again, into Luffield, up the inside line. And for the 3rd time, a Ferrari has got the grip and the confidence to take the outside line to Brooklands, to snatch the inside for the next corner. And a great move by Ollie Hancock up into 12th position. So Federico Leo down to 13th, but he'll hand that car over to the Malaysian driver Najib Razak later on when the pit window opens. Back to our race leader, Albert Costa, 5.7 seconds out of the margin. So he's pulled out another 4 tenths on that lap. And he is still lapping near his fastest lap pace. His previous time was a 1:58.480. So he's not showing any signs of slowing down, and why would he? And Grenier seems to have dropped Crestani a bit. The gap is 1.1 between them. Now, what about 4th, 5th and 6th? Because the two McLarens, they might start to possibly come under threat within the next few laps from Darren Turner, because looking at their lap times, 4th down to 8th position, all set personal bests, and then we had Tom Onslow-Cole in 10th on a 1:59.7. But out of the scrap for 4th, 5th and 6th, it was Turner who was quicker than Moreda, but Chavez was also quicker than the pair of them. So Chavez has the advantage in the McLaren, which is better placed in the championship. 2nd in the points compared to 5th place for Moreda and Sarabia. As now Thomas Tuchel is the next victim, potentially, of Tom Onslow-Cole. Out of the loop, up through Aintree, and onto the back straight towards Brooklands. You might start to line him up now. Is he going to be bold enough to pull off a Ferrari-esque move and dive to the outside line? We've seen both the Spirit of Race Ferrari and the Kessel Racing Ferrari pull it off. Onslow-Cole's not close enough at the moment. This is battle for 2nd place in Pro-Am, as Matt Griffin has a commanding lead in that category. And Ollie Hancock, now that he's cleared both Federico Leo and Daniel Zampieri, who's also lost out to the Kessel Racing Ferrari, he possibly, if he can find some pace, may start to sail up onto the back of this scrap. There he is in the background, the red Ferrari. This is the main battle in Pro-Am for second place. Tujula, who's got Frederick Schandorf waiting in the pit lane, whereas Valentin Pierberg will take over from Tom Onslow Cole. Still, the pair of them have got another obstacle to get around, and that is the BMW of Bikes-Kvissa, who is holding on nicely to the lead as Tom Onslow Cole monsters the curbs, and now he's in a great position to make a challenge to be in the draft all the way down the Hangar Straight. As they head down towards Stowe, is he going to make a move? Or has the Lamborghini got enough legs to hold on here? The answer is yes, it does. We go through Stowe Corner, slightly tighter run over the curbs for Onslow Cole. Keeps on applying the pressure, has a look up the inside line, here he comes. And again, classic distraction technique. He forced Tujula offline, which compromises his run through the club chicane. And out through the exit of club. It means that Onslow Cole can continue to apply the pressure, but look behind them, because Ollie Hancock on this last lap, let's take a look at his one. He's done a personal best sector. He was 3/10 better than Tom Onslow Cole and a full half-second better than Tujula, who has a big slide on the exit of Farm Corner. He's under pressure, he can feel it. And of course, we are going to be getting up to the pit window pretty soon, within the next few minutes, and that means that you'll get a little signal at the top left that says change on, and that will mean that the pit window is open and teams can come in to make their mandatory driver changes. As Bikes-Kvissa continues on in 8th position and looks relatively comfortable now, even though she's not being allowed to relax too much by Tujula and Onslow Cole, as the Mercedes tries to stick its nose up the inside of a Lamborghini. Slightly better exit from Onslow Cole, puts him right onto the rear wing of Thomas Tujula as they turn up through Woodcote and down towards Copse. So, 4 different cars: BMW, Lamborghini, Mercedes and Ferrari. That's the beauty of GT Open. A variety of manufacturers at play here. It's great to see the BMW join us at Red Bull Ring. There are the leaders, second down to 6th. There's Matt Griffin, who is also, like Darren Turner, in a bit of no man's land, not being really caught by Bikes-Kvissa, but he's not catching Darren Turner all too much, although he has just set the fastest first sector of the race. So I take that back. 35.3 compared to 35.7. That is a personal best for him. And into the pit lane comes Federico Leo. This won't be a scheduled stop, I'm afraid. And it really hasn't been a weekend to remember for the Ombra Racing team. They had problems with their Audi after contact at Red Bull Ring. They've now got themselves a Lamborghini. They were out before the first lap had even begun in race 1, and problems in race 2 means that they will have to go back home with 0 points from this weekend, I'm afraid. Now, Ollie Hancock is the one to watch out for, because his last sector, as we say, was 3/10 quicker than Onslow Cole, and despite it being a personal best for Tujula, he was still 2/10 slower as Onslow Cole makes a dive up the inside, and that was close. There was an opportunity there for sure, but Tujula had it covered off nicely. And look at this, they're all stacking up behind the BMW now as they come up through the loop, out through Aintree. And here's a replay. This is of the Sport Anu number 99 Mercedes. And that's definitely track limits. As they come back into the complex, and here comes Ollie Hancock trying to make a move on Tom Onslow Cole. And so the Hunted, Tonter becomes the Hunted now. And likewise, it's allowed Tujala to have a chance to get through, but into the pit lane as the pit window opens, both comes Bikes-Kvissa and Thomas Tujula. This now releases Tom Onslow Cole, who's still under threat from Ollie Hancock. So the first pit calls are in. Also in the pit lane is Daniel Zampieri from 13th place. He will hand over to Loris Spinelli in car number 6. There goes the Mercedes. So who's going to win this battle between the BMW and the Lamborghini? It's between the Senkia Motorsport and Vincenzo Sospiri Racing crews, and the VSR squad will be certainly buoyed after their double victory in the GT Cup Open races, thanks to the pair of Hans-Peter Koller and Edoardo Liberati. Frederick Schandorf and Thomas Tujala. So Frederick Schandorf has taken over. Into the pit lane comes the 99 Mercedes after its little excursion over the track limits on the runoff area at Max Beckett's, and out into the pit lane. The BMW has beaten the Lamborghini out of the pit lane. Yes, it has. and with a couple of seconds to spare, so a slick pit stop from the Senkia Motorsport squad. Now there's debris, we're being told, on track at turn 17, and that could either be a piece of bodywork, a piece of debris from a car, or it could even be just dust and dirt that's been thrown on from somebody who has run wide and kicked up some of the gravel. So no real change in the top 6 at this point in time. Albert Costa's got an 8.5 second lead. Grenier looks pretty safe in second place, 1.2 seconds ahead of Crestani. But there's a further 2.8 seconds back between the two McLarens, who are both in straight away. This will be a double pit stop for Teo Martin Motorsport. Their two crews will be well versed. This now releases Darren Turner. Also in the pits is the second place man. So into the pits comes Michael Grenier, who will hand over to Norbert Siedler. And the Emerald Ferry Racing boys hit the stops. And straight up. And unlike other endurance championships around the world, it's not put the fuel in first and then driver and tyre change, it's the other way around. So you change the tyres and the driver for the first part, and the second part is where you see fuel going in if required. So the Teo Martin squads go to work here. And Kodrich is jumping in place of Enrique Chavez. There's our race leader. Now, whether or not they will leave him out until the end of the pit window remains to be seen, or whether they'll jump in and put Giacomo in for the remaining half an hour or so. And again, this is the element of strategy in terms of what do you decide to do. Do you do like the Senkia Motorsport squad, like Vincenzo Sospiri Racing? Do you bring your car in right at the beginning of the pit window when it opens? Or do you wait? Do you find a space in the middle? Or do you even go right to the end to try and maximise your stint on the tyres you've got, which means that if you are changing tyres, you've got fresher rubber by the end of the race, and that can certainly help if you're tearing your way through the field, and it might give you an advantage over some of the teams that stopped at the top of the window. So lots to think about for the teams in terms of strategy. So through goes Albert Costa, out of Woodcote, and he will carry on for another lap, so he's not interested in pitting just yet. And the current gap now is almost 10 seconds as they come across the line. In fact, I'm pretty sure on this lap so far it will probably remain at 10 seconds, because Fabrizio Crestani, while he has matched the sectors, in fact set his personal best in sectors 1 and 2, in fact, he has gone to 10 seconds now because he lost 4 tenths in the final sector. So sectors 1 and 2 he effectively matched and set his personal best of the race so far. But it's the final sector where Costa was more confident in the Lamborghini. He's got the Raton Racing Huracan in front. That's Jiatong Liang, who has just made his change into the car and replaced Raffaele Gianmaria. And a few more pit stops have taken place, so once again we're just getting towards the end of the middle part of the pit window here at this point in time. There is Jiatong Liang in 15th place. And there is our race leader just chasing down as well, Giuseppe Cipriani in 14th position, as they turn their way through Abbey and through Farm Curve. So I've also got Elliot Wood alongside me in the commentary box here as well. And so far, Elliot, a pretty much simple race so far, although I was about to say uneventful. Then this happened. Manuel da Costa getting a little bit too friendly with the Tom Winslow Colt, and the result was the 99 car being nerfed off the road. I think that was Tom Winslow Colt just trying to find the gap when Costa felt as though he had the corner and running off the road. But some up and down moves up the order, but in many cases this man and this team, Emerald Ferry Racing and Albert Costa and Fabrizio Crestani, have pretty much been the dominant force all weekend so far, and I think it looks as though they're about to make their pit stop. Yes, they are. So at the moment, no one can stop them, but the question is going to be how quick can their pit stop be in order to get the advantage over their rivals.
Yeah, I've been looking at the lap times, and they set their fastest lap on lap 4 of this race, which is the earliest of any of the crews. A lot of them have been setting it just before the pit stop period. So they must have been setting quite a consistent pace to have extended almost a 10-second lead in the first stint of this race without being outright fastest on lap time.
We know how quick Albert Costa is, of course, handing over to the young Giacomo Altoe. Of course, former TCR racer, turned GT racer. And the Emerald Ferry squad go to work with the tyre changes. Here is Andres Saravia, who has jumped into the number 17 Teo Martin McLaren. And in terms of teams that haven't stopped yet, we haven't seen stops yet for Fabrizio Crestani or Darren Turner or Matt Griffin. No stop yet for Tom Onslow Cole or Ollie Hancock or, I was about to say Alessio Martinez, but he's just pitted now, and Nicola De Marco will take over the number 27 Lazarus Racing Lamborghini. So here's your leaders. Currently, Fabrizio Crestani, who will hand over to Miguel Ramos. And we're talking about trying to find the right area in the pit window in terms of strategy. Do you pit at the beginning of the stint, beginning of the pit window, where, yes, you can get your pro and driver in quicker, but you've got to possibly cope with worn tyres at the end of the stint? Or do you try and extend it as much as possible, create a gap, and risk possibly losing time at the end of it on worn tyres, but then know that you've got fresher rubber to carve your way back through should you go to the end of the stint? Because you do get some teams that do literally go right to the end of the window before they decide to pit in. So it is a real game of strategy to try and figure out exactly what the right route is to take, particularly in these long distance races.
It depends a lot on confidence as well, not only from the team to the drivers, but the driver to their teammate. You know, sometimes drivers stay out longer than the team particularly desire, and that's because they just feel so at one with the car at that time. Even if that means they're taking more life out of the tyres, that is going to hurt their co-driver later on.
And of course, it is warmer today than it was yesterday, which means that tyre wears and degradation is possibly going to be an issue, as the current race leaders, Fabrizio Crestani, brings the SPS Automotive Mercedes into the pit lane, so Miguel Ramos will take over in car number 10. This, at the moment, unless he decides to come in, which he hasn't, gives now Darren Turner the lead for the time being, but he will, I think, possibly pit towards the end of the stint by the looks of it to hand it over to Darren Turner.
And Tom Onslow Cole appears to be given the blame for that incident we saw earlier with Manuel da Costa, because his team manager has been summoned to race control with immediate effect.
Yeah, it did look as though, in his efforts to try and lap him, he might argue that he was up the inside and the 99 didn't see him, but at the same time, it did look as though it was quite an ambitious move to try and dive up the inside in my personal view. So, but we'll wait and see what the stewards decide, if there's going to be a penalty or not. He hasn't pitted yet, so he's still got to hand over to Valentin Pierberg, as our race leader with Giacomo Alto at the wheel now, chasing down Andres Saravia, who actually has been leapfrogged. So the McLaren of Andres Saravia, after a fantastic outlap, where that's come from, I'm not sure, but Andres Saravia has actually managed to get ahead of our race leaders. So despite the 10-second penalty, I think what it might have been is the fact that they've got their maximum success sort of penalty in the pit lane, which I think is 80 or 85 seconds. So that's possibly the extra 10-15 seconds lost has seen them fall back a little bit. Now into third place has gone Martin Kodrich in the second of the Teo Martin cars, and in fourth place in the order is Norbert Siedler, who did have the fastest lap of the race, and just exiting the pits is Miguel Ramos, who's rejoined back in fifth after he's taken over from Fabrizio Crestani. And so, thanks to the pit stop penalties, we've now got a rather interesting second half of the race about to develop here, Elliot, with the fact that we've now got a McLaren in the lead, but we know a very, very fast Lamborghini in second place.
Yeah, and looking how quickly some of these cars have got their tyres up to temperature and setting quick lap times, it's certainly the McLarens that, like you said, with the strong outlap, have got to pace. The Lamborghinis do look quite slow, dipping into the 2 minutes, 2 minute lap times rather than the 1 minute 59s.
But the benefit of as well with Albert Costa and Giacomo Alto is they've got two drivers which arguably are relatively as quick as each other, which is also quite helpful, particularly when you've got an all-pro driver lineup as they head into Abbey Corner and through Farm. This is on lap 18. And pit stops happening for two of our British crews. Here is one of them from the race lead. Now, what's interesting is that these guys only have a 65-second handicap. Also in the pit lane is the Spirit of Race Ferrari with Duncan Cameron taking over from Matt Griffin. Now, I wonder, could this possibly, with the shorter pit stop time, Elliot, throw the Aston Martin right into the mix here? Because the leaders are only coming up towards Brooklands now, underneath the bridge down the Wellington Straight. So I think possibly with the shorter pit stop time and that longer stint, this could possibly play into the hands of Aston Martin here, but depending on the fact they won the second race at Red Bull Ring from pole, this could work in their favour. If
it comes to track position, I think it will. But looking at the pace of those cars, the ones that have obviously already got their tyres up to temperature, if they are ahead, are probably going to stay ahead. So it's very much about the pit stop itself rather than what's going to happen afterwards. We're seeing our front two going past now, and we saw the Mercedes of Tom Onslow Cole at the pit exit there, and several of the other cars, including the number 50 Ferrari, that's being taken off the jacks. So our top two now are not Valentin Pierberg, he's leaving the pits now. Andre Saravia and Giacomo Alto, who took over from Albert Costa in the Vincenzo Emil Frey Lamborghini.
But what's interesting here is look at this. Out of the pits, Ollie Wilkinson has rejoined, but he's right behind Norbert Siedler in 5th position now. As the battle of the lead is starting to draw here between Andre Saravia and Giacomo Altoe, exiting through Stowe Corner. So now the pit stops are starting to shake out here. The last few cars that haven't pitted just yet are completing those pit stops. So now, how it's shaken out is Saravia leads the way in the McLaren, being hustled now by Giacomo Altoe in 2nd place in the Lamborghini. Martin Kodrich is now 3rd. 4th place for Norbert Siedler, but on the tail of him now is Ollie Wilkinson. So the top 5 are all on the same straight together now. And the fact that that closed down means we could possibly get a really decent finish to this race, particularly with the different tyre lives in this race. And also have to remember as well is Ollie Wilkinson's just come out of the pit lane, and he has tyres that are going to be a few laps younger than the cars in front of him as running around the outside. Potentially goes Giacomo Altoe to make an attack on the McLaren. Both of these cars are mid-engine, so the weight is pretty much balanced as much as possible. It's all down to straight line grunt and who's got the traction off the corner. But so far, maybe in the closing stages, it could play into the Aston Martin's hands with those tyres that are a few laps younger.
Yeah, looking at the Miguel Ramos car, which is the lead of the SPS Automotive Mercedes cars, I imagine Mercedes are going to put in their strategic news into that car now, seeing that the Valentin Pierberg Tom Onslow car one, before any penalty, if there is a penalty to be given, has been applied, is already down to 12th place, over half a minute off the lead cars.
So absolutely, the pit window's now closed, so all pit stops have been completed. So it's a fair point about Miguel Ramos. Let's see what he can do to possibly try and close that gap. And his last lap was a 1:59.727 up to speed. He's got 10 seconds on the lead and 5 seconds to make up on the next car in front, which is Ollie Wilkinson. There is Ollie just flashing through the background behind Norbert Siedler. And there is Fabrizio Crestani just relaying some feedback to his SPS team. Oh, and that was Ollie Wilkinson exiting Chapel, bounding over the grass there. So a mistake for Ollie Wilkinson. And of course, on fresh tyres, that's still going to dirty him for about a lap or so. That won't do his chances of possibly getting himself onto the podium any good at all.
Yeah, it definitely hasn't there. And also the fact that if he has just got his tyres into that kind of peak patch and then covered them in dust, it's going to make them immediately a lot less grippy compared to the level he just got them to.
Especially if they're hot, of course, all the dirt will start to stick to the tyres, of course, and make them very greasy and very difficult to handle, so he's lost some time. Cars 17 and 20 to report to race control immediately, and one of them, 17, is the race leader. So Andre Saravia, now is it maybe, I could have thought, is it maybe for a pit stop too short maybe? Because that's the thing I can think of. I can't think it's track limits. Hasn't made any contact. This is what happened to Ollie Wilkinson, just understeer wide after a little bit of a twitch of oversteer. Oversteer because of understeer, as you said yesterday. So he slid wide and off the road he went. The only thing I can think of with the leading car is if they've been summoned up because they potentially had a pit stop that was maybe a couple of seconds too short. There's anything I can think of because I haven't seen them abuse track limits. They've not made contact with anyone, so maybe that could be the cause.
Did they change tyres during their pit stop?
I'm confident they would have done, otherwise they would have been under attack and maybe been passed by now by Albert Costa.
Because the rules are very specific that when you do change the tyres as well as the driver during the pit stop, you have to meet an even longer minimum time.
We'll wait and see what the reason for the team manager being called to race control is, but Teo Martin might be a little bit nervous at this point because he has got his car leading the way, but Giacomo Altoe is putting him under pressure here, and I think it's quite a tall order to ask him to fend off the championship leaders for some 20 minutes or so, but I'm sure that Andre Saravia will give it a good go. Kodrich in 3rd place, Siedler in 4th, who still has the fastest lap of the race with a 1:58.165. And Kodrich's car has been recorded as the fastest car through the speed trap, 252.9 kilometres an hour.
And warning flags for cars 17 and 63. That is our current top 2 for track limits violations. So obviously fighting a little too hard between one another at the moment.
You can't deny not pushing it. That's pushing as Giacomo Altoe just whacked the curb on the inside of the first part of Club Corner. So he's definitely committed. He's pushing on as hard as he dares. And he is a young sort of flamboyant Italian, so he's going to have a driving style to match. But Giacomo, for the most part, is a fairly reserved driver in terms of he does keep it very smooth, but just showing a little bit of aggressiveness here as he continues his pursuit of Andrés Sarabia. So not only is Andrés Sarabia being warned of track limits, his team management is someone to race control. So I can't imagine the blood pressure down at Teo Martin Motorsport is that low down there. It's probably getting quite high at this point.
If misery comes to either our top two, we do have Teo Martin leading Emil Frey, and in third and fourth we also have Teo Martin leading Emil Frey. So I think either of these two teams is guaranteed to win this race at this rate.
So it seems though at the moment it's Teo Martin that are being the fly in Emil Frey's ointment, because at the moment they hold first and third, and the two Emil Frey cars can't seem to find a way through. So Sarabia now seems to have just about the legs on Giacomo Altoe. Power-wise, they look as though pretty even. They're both mid-engine supercars, and they're both sort of fairly evenly weight distribution as they come up through Copse Corner again. This is on lap 21.
I think one drive to watch is the Lazarus Lambo of Nicola Di Marco. Had overtaken Valentin Pierberg about 1 or 2 laps ago. It's just overtaken John Hartshorn, who's also lost another place to Pierberg. So something may have happened there that we haven't seen on screen. In fact, he was over a second down during that sector.
Looks though also in the sequence of pit stops that we lost, sadly, Giuseppe Cipriani. So the number 8 Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes is sadly out of the race as well. So we're down to 15 runners in this second International GT Open race. And you can see visibly how close it is. That's how close 0.3 seconds is between Andrés Sarabia and Giacomo Altoe. Altoe closes back in under braking. He's monstering the rear wing of the McLaren as they turn their way through. Not as aggressive over the first part of club this time, by granted, so he's probably trying to mind his P's and Q's with the track limits. Kodrich third, still being put under pressure from Norbert Siedler. So this really is an all-out war at the moment between Teo Martin and Emil Frey.
Beyond flashing the headlights, which is GT drivers' favourite distraction tactic of choice, there's also the ability to kind of drive the car in front of you. So deliberately position yourself on the entry to corners as if you're going for an overtake, so the driver in front either defends or takes a deeper entry to cover off the position, and that eventually ends up making them use their tyres more, which leaves them susceptible when you do want to make an overtake.
And we've seen that plenty of times already today in not only Euro Formula Open but also GT Cup Open. We saw that several times. Drivers sort of feinting to make a move up the inside line but then darting back to the racing line to try and confuse and kind of bamboozle the driver in front to make them think that they're about to be attacked for a move, but then as they sit back it puts them offline and then eventually sees them under pressure on the exit of the corner, which eventually sees them back off and lose the place. So 17 minutes to go. Of course, all the pit stops are completed as the pit window closed a few minutes ago. So Sarabia leads, Altoe second. Kodrich has now set a new speed trap record and track limits warning for car 59. That's Martin Kodrich. So the top 3 are getting warned for track limits now. So if that doesn't tell you they're pushing, I don't know what will.
They're all running a very similar pace. The top 4 are all set in 1 minute 58.8 or 1 minute 58.9. It's an incredibly close pace. And Oliver Wilkinson, who obviously we saw him made that mistake earlier and kind of wasted his tyre advantage, is going slightly faster than them at 159.5.
He's also losing time at the same time to Miguel Ramos in the Mercedes, because 59.5 compared to a 59.2 from Ramos last time by. Gap is 2.6 between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes. As we see UK versus Italy here, McLaren versus Lamborghini. And that's a bit much from Giacomo Altoe using the track limits there. He was much wider on the exit of Club Corner than Andrés Sarabia. And up through Farm Curve, up towards the complex, into Village, and into the loop.
And Frederick Schandorf in 9th place is our fastest man on track at the moment at 1 minute 58.9. Sorry, yeah, that is correct. Quite almost 4 tenths faster than anyone else at the moment. Is he in clear air? Kind of. He's getting close to Richard Gonda in 8th place.
Certainly a personal best for the 66 of Frederick Schandorf, and so he's got a 2.3 seconds margin to make up on the Senkia Motorsport BMW that sits ahead of him in 8th position. Of course, Bajtskevicius has handed that car over to Richard Gonda, the Slovakian driver. Did all that great work in the first Red Bull Ring race to help that car pick up 2nd place on its debut weekend in the season. Down towards Copse, start of another lap. So Sarabia from Altoe, 0.3 of a second is the margin. Then there's 2.4 seconds back to the next battle for 3rd and 4th between Martin Kodrich and Norbert Siedler. Ollie Wilkerson holding on to a top 5 spot. His last lap, actually, look at that for novelty, was 2 minutes exactly. 2 minutes .000. How's that for precision? So onto the hangar straight come the leaders. Still Saravia from Altoria. The gap just does not change. It's still 0.3 seconds. Altoria, despite being that close behind the McLaren, doesn't appear to be losing any grip or suffering from any turbulence at the front of the field as he stares at the rear wing of the McLaren, looking for a way through. Where he's
looking at the shape of these two cars, the McLaren certainly looks a lot more streamlined than the Lamborghini behind it. I imagine going down the straights, it's actually pulling away slightly and making sure that Lamborghini can't get close enough to challenge for an overtake at the end of those two long straights.
They do. I think you're right. They both do seem to have very similar drag coefficients in terms of how slippery they are in terms of their design. Although I have to say, I think the McLaren looks a little bit more low-slung than the Lamborghini, but the Lamborghini seems to be a little bit more bulbous and more sort of rounded shape that allows the air to kind of flow off it a little bit easier. So, whereas the McLaren looks a bit more sort of slightly more angular, but certainly has plenty of curves on it to deflect the air around the car and hopefully press it down off the ground as much as possible. 13 and a half minutes to go then in this second International GT Open race here at Silverstone. And the big headline is Emil Frey Racing, after dominating yesterday, don't have it their own way this afternoon, because it is the two Teo Martin twins of Andres Saravia and Martin Kodric who are keeping these two at bay at the moment. So far, if things stay as they are, it will be a double Teo Martin podium. However, don't count out the Emil Frey Lamborghinis yet. They put on such a racing demonstration yesterday, and it looked like it was about to be the same today. But the fact that they had the pit stop handicap, which saw them run extra long pit stops and extra time added on, means that they've now come out behind Andres Saravia, and that's crucial. Look at this, a 1 second time penalty to be added to our race leader for a less time handicap. So literally, his pit stop was 1 second too short. That's agonising. So the task is now, if it's even possible, he's got to pull out at least a second gap to Giacomo Altoria. Otherwise, it will be the second win of the weekend and the fourth of the season for Altoria and Costa. So after discovering that, there it is on the screen. So that'll be the signal going to Saravia. You've now got to push like hell, get the gap out to over a second in order to ensure this victory. Otherwise, it will go to the car right behind him.
They look closer already, I think, which is very, very quick. Looking at the gaps from earlier as well, I think they started to kind of, after the pit stop phase, took a few laps for them to join up to one another. So they've been in one another's mirrors for at least 10 minutes already now, and they've got another 10 minutes of this. So it may be a case of the lead car of Andres Saravia buckling under pressure before the penalties even applied.
He's certainly feeling the pressure as Altoria managed to stick the nose of his Lamborghini right under the gearbox of Saravia as they came out through the loop. Quick check to the gap behind the battle for third and fourth place. Now, interestingly, Kodric has pulled away to almost a second compared to Norbert Siedler in fourth place. So the gap is 0.9. So in terms of the pace, it does seem as though, and bear in mind, both of those McLaren stopped on exactly the same lap together, so they've both got exactly the same amount of tyre life, but at the moment it seems that Saravia has got the slightly more equal pace compared to Martin Kodric. Here's a replay of a battle for seventh between Duncan Cameron in the Spirit of Race Ferrari and the Richard Gonda Senkia Motorsport BMW. And also in the mix there too was Frederick Schandorf, who we saw was charging along earlier on in the times, but he's now watching on as that battle heads on. There's a warning flag for car 6, which is Laura Spinelli, who's handed over from Daniel Zampieri. They're currently running 10th position. They're getting track limits warnings at turn 7 and turn 1. So that will be exit of Stowe and the exit of Copse.
And Spinelli has been the fastest driver on track for quite a while now. I think the last 6 laps he's been the fastest driver, setting 1 minute 58 consistently, which only the two Teo Martin and 2 Lamborghinis up front have just about matched of late.
I'm wondering if the message of the penalty has maybe got through to Andres Saravia, because at the end of the straight he was 0.4 seconds ahead, and already on this lap so far, I don't know about you, Elliot, but that Lamborghini is not right underneath the back of the McLaren anymore, really. He's pulled out at least another couple of tenths to try and have a bit more of a buffer. That said, Siedler has gained back a 10th on Kodrich behind in third place. So maybe Saravi's been told, right, okay, you've got to get away by a second. Let's turn the wick up a little bit more. Use a bit more of the tyres if you can. Let's get the gap out to over a second. But as I say that, Altoe is still right underneath him in the braking zone.
Yeah, and through those low-speed corners, the Lamborghini, with all its grunt, certainly looks a lot stronger through there. But the lead Teo Martin car, I think, might have made a mistake as well. Being eyed up for the race lead now between the two going into Brooklands, thinks better of it by Giacomo Altoe, who's quite early on in his racing career compared to some of the other drivers in this field.
Yeah, one of the youngest in the field, and one of his better achievements has been a front runner. I think he's also won races at TCR level. He's raced, I think, TCR Europe and also TCR International before it became the World Touring Car Cup. So he's made the nice transition from front-wheel drive touring cars to rear-wheel drive GT cars and done so pretty much seamlessly. So it's looking good. Now, looking at a battle for third place, Norbert Siedler's got the gap down to just as much as it is between the top two. So it's 0.4 between Kodrich and Siedler as the leaders come through. There is Kodrich. There is Norbert Siedler, the Austrian, in fourth position. And there is the top four altogether. So Teo Martin McLaren leads Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini, leads Teo Martin McLaren, leads Emil Frey Lamborghini. So this is the battle that's going on. This has pretty much been the team battle all the way through the season so far.
And Kodrich has not only set the fastest speed trap figure of the race, he's just set his personal best first sector. So he's definitely up the pace. We could have a four-way fight for the lead here. And with that 1 second penalty in mind, it could realistically go to any of those four cars.
And also the thing is that if Saravia can't pull away from Altoe, and Altoe starts getting held up by Saravia, there's every plausibility that both Kodrich and Siedler could come into play here. And you're absolutely right. It could be a four-way fight for the lead with less than 8 minutes to go in this race. So there is a real opportunity for, as you say, a four-way scrap for the lead. And how great would that be to end off what's been a pretty exciting weekend all in all for GT Open. We've had some great GT Cup Open races. Euroformula Open's been exciting. And this second International GT Open race is looking good as Altoe just moves out, puts himself into Saravi's mirrors.
Kodrich has taken another 3 tenths out of Altoe in that sector alone. So they realistically could be on the tail of them over the next lap.
And what could be interesting also is that if Kodrich can get himself in front of Altoe, what's to say that Teo Martin might not give him the instruction, okay, let Andres get up in front, see if he can hold up the two Lamborghinis behind. There's every plausibility, if they're battling for even though both cars are battling for the championship, as well as the two Lamborghinis and the SPS Automotive Mercedes, which is back in 6th position for the record behind Ollie Wilkinson, there's every chance they might say, right, get yourself into second place, hold the 1-2, and maybe inadvertently he might decide to be a bit of a blocker for his teammates to try and run up the road and build up a second gap to try and hold on here. There's 6 3/4 minutes to go. Kodrich is closing in. You're absolutely right. Siedler's in there as well. So I think we could get a real showdown here for this last closing stages.
The lead of the Pro-Am class has just changed. Frederick Schandorf's just overtaken Duncan Cameron for 8th place overall on track. But that is for the Pro-Am class lead between the Lamborghini and the Ferrari.
And that could be a nice redemption for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing after they had their problems at the start of the first race when they tagged the Ollie Wilkinson Optimum Aston Martin and dropped down the order. So to round off the weekend, if they can, with a Pro-Am victory, they'd enjoy that. There's the Teo Martin squad on the pit wall looking rather nervous, but looking visibly, you're absolutely right. Martin Kodrich, that gap is not about a couple of seconds anymore. It's half a second between Altoe and Kodrich. So now it's going to be the two Teo Martin cars sandwiching the second place Lamborghini, and the second Emil Frey car is behind that second McLaren. So unless he can get past Kodrich, there's nothing he can do to help his teammate other than try and get past the McLaren to do so.
The one car with nothing to lose right now is Norbert Siedler in 4th place, because I doubt he'd lose any positions going down. Here's a replay of the move for the Pro-Am class lead. Simple down the inside of Luffield by the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini on Duncan Cameron. And they are very close, our top 4, going into Brooklands, which must mean they're quite close to lapping some drivers now if they're going through the same corners.
Looks like it. There is a car up the road that might be the Indy Donche and Russell Ward car. Oh, no, so that's out the race, my apologies. So I think it's the Miguel da Costa and Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia Sports and U99 Mercedes in front, and back markers can always play a part in moves. We've seen it so many times
0.96
before.
seconds. The top four are all under a second between them now, and they're going through Maggots and Beckett's. It's an incredibly close battle with 5 minutes to go.
I think the term is rubs hands with glee, because this is 5 minutes to go. The top four are together and they're all evenly matched. So Sarabia leads, but he has that 1 second penalty to try and negate if he can. Altoe in second place, but he's under pressure there for Martin Kodrich. And there's the headlights. And just Sarabia saying, I like you very much, Miguel, but you need to get out of the way, because otherwise we're going to get held up here, down towards Stowe they go, all four of them together.
And Norbert Seidler's now got a warning flag as well for track limits at turn 7 and 11. And he's actually dropped off the back of the top three just there. So maybe he's got either a message of that warning, or he wanted to be extra careful through Stowe to make sure he didn't break track limits.
So that's the full house then, because all four have had warnings for track limits now, so they're all pushing as hard as possible. But you're absolutely right, seeing the fact that Sarabia, he runs wide. Oh, so does Kodrich though. That could be a bit cheeky. If that gets looked on, frowned upon by the stewards, that could be a possible penalty for track limits. We'll wait and see if they do anything at all, but that was rather wide on the exit of Club Corner there for Kodrich. And all that's just broken things up a little bit now, as Kodrich is still there on the back of Altoe, but I don't want this to be a stalemate. I want to see some action here, hopefully with the last 4 minutes. And there is Miguel da Costa. So Manuel da Costa, keep getting the two names confused of the 99 car. This is a replay of Duncan Cameron.
And
losing,
Loris Spinelli, I think.
And that's a change of position overall. So not a change in Pro-Am. That's a change of overall position for ninth. So that was Loris Spinelli in the Mercedes moving past Duncan Cameron's Ferrari. And that puts the number 21 car down to 10th position. Now, all four of our leaders have gone past the Manuel da Costa Mercedes. So good driving by Manuel to keep out of the way. Well done. So 3 minutes and 10 seconds to go. We're going to get 2 more laps here, I think. So let's look at the difference now.
That Lamborghini has dropped 1.7 seconds in a lap, the second Lamborghini in this quartet.
I tell you, Mars was thinking it's all well and good, but it's the wrong Lamborghini, because they want Altoe to drop off, not Norbert Seidler, if they want to keep this win.
Yeah, at this rate, they will be set for second and third, with Kodrich actually being the lead Teo Martin car, I believe.
So out of Chapel Corner and up towards Stowe for the second to last time. We're on lap 29 of this second International GT Open race, and it could not be closer at the front. The top three are all together. Seidler really has dropped off pace. He's back to 2.4 now. He lost to, what was it, almost 6/10 of a second to the leaders on that sector alone. So either he's got a problem or just simply taking too much out of his tyres one way or the other.
But the top three are converging again. Teo Martin really needs this result as well after a pretty horrific morning in Euro Formula Open and GT Cup Open, where they missed out on those big results.
They did, and to get a victory here would be happy. But the thing is, in this last lap and a half, Sarabia just needs that 1 second gap, but he hasn't got it because Altoe will not let him get away. He closes back in under braking into the complex at Village.
And what Altoe knows, though, is that if he does try a kind of a diving move on Sarabia, A, he's already ahead in regards to the penalty, but B, if it goes wrong, he's then going to let the other Teo Martin car through into the lead.
Absolutely. So this is going to be a crucial time here. Really, in many cases, it is Altoe who's got the nervous position here, because, of course, if he knows, as you say, if he attacks, he could be under threat from behind. But if he just sits there and lets the move happen, lets the race play out as it is right now, he will win by the fact that he will only be behind by less than a second. So this will be quite interesting. So coming up to start the last lap of the race, are we going to see any last lap drama between these top three? Head out of Woodcote one more time around the Grand Prix circuit. The final lap board goes out. You can see final lap on the top left of the screen. So into the right-hander at Copse Corner for the last time. The gap across the line was still 0.3 of a second. There's flashing headlights again. I think this must be for maybe the John Hartshorn Pro-Am Ferrari number 50 in front, which it is.
And the second McLaren has definitely dropped off as well now. Maybe that's taken too much life out of its tyres, which makes this kind of a two-way fight for victory. But at the moment, it's actually Altoe who's in the lead by around 6/10 when the penalty's applied.
Emerald Fair Racing discussing it here as they watch on rather nervously. And I'm just Sarabia flashing the headlights furiously to try and warn John Hartshorn he needs to get out of the way. But incredibly for this whole stint, Altoe has simply just sat there behind the McLaren and just kept on applying the pressure. Hartshorn moves out of the way and goes rolled very deep into the corner. Altoe goes across. I think he might have wished Hartshorn to come back across and hold up the Lamborghini if he could, but It's not how it works, and Hartshorn slots back in behind them, now a lap down.
The question is Kodric still in third position? Because he has dropped back massively. We still haven't seen him in the picture. We haven't seen him on our timing screens either.
Well, yeah, his Kodric's last sector was 40.0, and that's compared to a 37.6 for Seidler. And I think they're together because I think both cars have really lost their tyres and they've dropped back all the way. So out of the loop for the last time then, and unless touchwood something happens, and there's Martin Kodric. He's been passed by Norbert Seidler and maybe by Ollie Wilkinson here down the outside line. There could be a change for third place. Last time there's contact. That was Chris Starling to the side of Kodric. Round goes Wilkinson. Last lap drama, and that was all caused, I'm afraid, by Miguel Ramos. At the front of the field, though, into the complex for the last time, and it won't be enough unless Sarabia tries to pull to second in the last couple of corners, but it's not going to happen. And even though he might win it on the road, Andres Sarabia will win the race on the road and take the checkered flag, but the victory and the result will go to Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa, their 4th win of the season in 2019. I'm not sure Sarabia realises it. Emil Fredu, they've seen the penalty, and 3rd place, provisionally at least, after what happened. It will go to the Mercedes of Miguel Ramos. 4th will go to Norbert Seidler, but there's going to be a lot of discussions. You can see damage on the left front there. Next coming through is going to be Richard Gonda in 5th position as a result of that. 6th place will be a very much aggrieved Martin Kodric. That's a very unimpressed Teo Martin Motorsport on the pit wall, and who can blame them? 7th place for Ollie Wilkinson, 8th for Spinelli, 9th for Schandorf, and 10th for Cameron. And while, yes, Sarabia did win on the road, there are your race winners, double race winners for the weekend, the 4th of 2019. And Giacomo Altoe did exactly what he needed to do. Just sit behind Sarabia, apply the pressure, and even though the gap was 0.6 per second, it's still enough to take the win after that 1 second penalty.
And the Ramos-Kodric incident is under investigation, but I think it was actually John Hartshorn who was being lapped just a few corners prior that kind of caused this all to converge.
We see there Miguel Ramos just diving up the inside and making contact. So this is now the onboard with Darren Turner. He's now got Kodric to his left. There's Seidler in front. They both turn in into the complex. Bang. There we go. And I think what happened was Ramos hit Kodric. As a result, Kodric then hit Wilkinson. Yeah, there you go. There's the concertina. So Ramos tagged the back of the McLaren. The McLaren spins into the Aston Martin. And that's a bit similar to what happened on the first lap with the Aston Martin, the Lamborghini, and the Federico Leo car as well.
And Ramos has been handed a 10-second time penalty for that. So I'm not sure if that's already been added to our timing screens. He's currently in 5th, 26 seconds off. With Martin Kodric in 6th, 26.994 seconds off.
I think it has been applied because he crossed the line in 3rd place. So Norbert Seidler's been given 3rd place as a result of that. Richard Gonda in the BMW has been given 4th place with Bajtskevisa. Wow, what an eventful finish to that second race it was. So Costa and Altoe win by 0.6 per second after Ruedo and Sarabia took the win on the road, but the 1 second penalty for too short a pit stop puts them back in 2nd place. Seidler and Grenier take 3rd. Bajtskevisa and Richard Gonda pick up 4th after that post-race penalty for Miguel Ramos and Crestani after contact with the 2 cars that ended up 6th and 7th. Kodric and Chavez down in 6th. Wilkinson and Turner down in 7th place with Spinelli and Zampieri. Schandorf and Thomas Tuchela in 9th place. Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin rounding out the top 10. So here's the points. Heading to Barcelona, it's a 9-point advantage for Costa and Altoe, with Chavez and Kodric in 2nd place on 88. 81 points for Fran Mereda and Andres Sarabia. 75 points for Grenier and Seidler. And thanks to the penalty, it pushes Ramos and Crestani down to 5th position. So still all to play for. But here are your dominant race winners all weekend. At least dominance in race 1. They did pick up the win in race 2 after the challenge of Teo Martin Motorsport. But Giacomo Altoe certainly did everything he needed to, and Albert Costa is buzzing after that, and for good reason. 4 race wins this season, and you have to say, looking at that performance so far, after taking those victories early in the season, taking the win at Red Bull Racing and dominating Silverstone here this weekend, at the moment now going to Barcelona, there's nothing else for it. They are now the favourites, I'm sure, in terms of form, going to the last 2 rounds now at Barcelona and Monza.
And if there was ever a circuit that Albert Costa is a specialist at, it would be Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya.
So that's him winning both races then, by the sounds of it. It is his home circuit. How much would he love to win at home, of course? And also as well, it's the 2 home circuits for those drivers. We've got Barcelona coming up, which is Albert Costa.
We've just had a driver hit their head on the door, and he's hit it again on the Teo Martin car.
That, I think, was Andres Sarabia, I think, just bumping his head. But thankfully, his crash helmet protected that. So Albert Costa. This time yesterday wasn't feeling very well. He was very sort of about an upset stomach, but I think he had to go to the doctors overnight. And,
yeah, I think the doctor prescribed a win, and that's what cured him.
Right, okay. So Albert Costa takes the victory. So there it is, Schandorf and Tugela, who actually ended up winning Pro-Am. So they were the winners, 9th overall winners in Pro-Am, ahead of Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin. And Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow-Cole picked up 3rd place in that class. And let's take a look at confirmation of our top 3 after that race. So in 3rd place, despite dropping off in the end, Norbert Siebler and Mikael Grenier and the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini to make it 2 Lamborghinis on the podium in 3rd place for car 14. In 2nd place, despite winning on the road, the 1-second penalty for a too short pit stop gives Fran Mereda and Andre Sarabia a valuable 2nd place for Teo Martin in the McLaren. But the win and the double victory this weekend, the dominant drivers, Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe, make it 4 wins for the season and a 9-point championship lead to take to Albert Costa's home rounds at Barcelona in Spain. And here is Alfredo in the pit lane with our winners.
Again with Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe, who are winners also when they come in second. Very good for the championship in any case, and a very tough race with a second stint really very, very close. But let's start with the start, Al.
Yeah, we knew the potential was there, so we have to use it, no? In Barcelona, we don't know what's going to happen with the weather, with the crash, you know, everything can happen, so we have to use this potential. We knew exactly what they had to do. I had to push in the beginning to make a gap. We knew that we had 15 seconds handicap, so I was with the mentality on as a hammer mode, and I started to push. I was very consistent with my laps, and I made a good gap just to fight for the victory. I feel sorry for my Spanish neighbors to lose the victory like this, because racing is racing, but they are the winners, McLaren, but with the penalty we are the winners, so I feel good anyway, and I'm sorry for them because I don't like to win like this, but anyway, good racing. And that's all. Good for the championship as well.
Very good for the championship, and very lively, very spectacular second stint. A big battle, Jack.
Yeah, it was tough. Andres was driving very well and was not giving me the chance to overtake him. And then in the half of the stint, I had the radio call of the penalty of him. So I just stayed there to control a bit the situation, and it worked. So I'm happy.
Well done.
Thank you.
Podium.
Here's highlight to what turned out to be a very tense second race at Silverstone for International GT Open. Straight away from the lead, it was the 2 Emil Frey Lamborghinis that took first and second. But into turn 1, the 2 Teo Martin McLarens were split and then passed by the SPS Mercedes of Fabrizio Crestani into turn 1. So the top 5 getting into the line of stern. There was plenty of passing early on, as we saw the Federico Leo and Naji Razak Ombra Racing Lamborghini past the Raton Racing car. A great move around the outside, not once but twice. First of all with Matt Griffin passing the Thomas Tugela Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini into Brooklands. And out of it once again. And a big dive up the inside here from Tom Onslow-Cole, who was recovering after running as high as 6th, diving past Daniel Zampieri for position into the complex of the new arena section. Pit stops happened in earnest with the 2 Teo Martin McLarens pitting first of all, and then the 2 Emil Frey Lamborghinis. Bit of an incident between the 2 Mercedes here with Tom Onslow-Cole bumping Manuel da Costa out of the way. And also a key pass here with Beitske-Visser just ahead of Duncan Cameron and Frederick Schandorf. That was the crucial pass for the Pro-Am lead, as up the inside exiting, left field went through. And then on the last lap of the race, Miguel Ramos tagged the back of Martin Kodrich. We saw him tag the back of Ollie Wilkinson, and both cars went off. And despite Andres Sarabia holding off Giacomo Altoe, a 1-second penalty for a pit stop too short gave the 2nd win of the weekend and the 4th of the season for Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa. And even though it was 3rd place on the road for Miguel Ramos, a post-race podium gave Norbert Siedler in the 2nd Emil Frey Lamborghini the 3rd place in the race. So 3rd place to Norbert Siedler and to Miguel Grenier. 2nd place goes to Andres Sarabia and Fran Mereda. And for their 4th win of the season and the 2nd of the weekend to complete the double, it is Emil Frey Racing's Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe, who I'm sure will put themselves into prime championship contention with that lead heading to Costa's home circuit of Barcelona, and also rep from Emil Frey Racing. And next up will be the national anthem for the winning team of Switzerland. So the national anthem of Switzerland rings out for Emil Frey Racing, and so we get on to hand out the trophies for the top 3 overall. And the first set of trophies for 3rd place. So Karen from Silverstone is going to hand out the trophies to our 3rd place pair of Michael Grenier and Norbert Seidler, who dropped off in the end, but thanks to the penalties, re-inherit a 3rd place on the podium after a solid drive for most of the race. And here is the 2nd place trophy being handed to Andres Saravia and Fran Reda. Winners on the road, but 2nd place after the penalty, but still a valuable podium for Teo Martin Motorsport. A nice silver lining after a tough weekend for them all round. And Rania from Michelin goes ahead and gives the winners' trophies overall to our double race winners for the 4th time this season, Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe of Emil Frey Racing. And there, of course, is the winning team award, also to Emil Frey. Another piece of silverware to take home onto the Emil Frey Racing mantelpiece, I'm sure. And so, as we leave the TV coverage here on BT Sport, thanks ever so much for watching, and with some highlights coming up in a moment. Silverstone has been great with 2 wins for Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe. We'll see you guys next time for action. Albert Costa's home circuit as they visit Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. Join us in a couple of weeks' time for myself, Scott Woodward, and all of us here, and Elliot Wood here at Silverstone. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time at Barcelona. Bye for now. And for those still with us on the online live stream, we're going to get cracking straight away with the Pro-Am podium. First of all, 3rd place going to Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow Cole. 2nd place going to Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin for Spirit of Race. And the winners in Pro-Am for the 2nd race, Frederick Schandorf and Thomas Tugela for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing. So 3 victories this weekend for the team after they took a double victory in GT Cup Open, thanks to the efforts of Liberati and Hans-Peter Koller. There's the 3rd place trophies for Onslow Cole and Pierberg, coming quite a formidable combination of these two. And good to see them back on the podium after their win here last year. 2nd place, Raja of Michelin hands over the trophies to Matt Griffin and Duncan Cameron. So nice to see a Ferrari on the podium this weekend. And Raja also hands out the winners' trophies to Frederick Schandorf and Thomas Tugela, winners for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing. And I think they're delighted with that, and just every justification to be more silverware for Vincenzo Sospiri's team to take home. And so they will head on to the top step of the podium in a moment for the group photo. And first of before that, it's time quickly as Valentin Pierberg runs out of the way. He doesn't want to get his overalls soaked with champagne. Everyone else doesn't mind. As the champagne goes flying. We'll very quickly move in very shortly to our brief AM podium, which there is only one representative, that being Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia, who are the only ones finished. So confirmation of the top 3 in Pro-Am, with Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow Cole, who pick up 3rd place in the SPS Automotive Mercedes. It will be 2nd place ahead of them for the Spirit of Race Ferrari of Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin. Good to see them on the podium at their home weekend in the British Racing Green metallic green Ferrari. And in the lead of Pro-Am was Schandorf and Tugler. Well, that's it here from Silverstone. Join us in a couple of weeks when we head to Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, where the championship will take an even further turn. From myself, Scott Woodwis, Elliot Wood, and all of us here at Silverstone, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks in Spain. Bye for now.